since this is in Spain, not too far.
Yeah.
I'm in Spain and I will try to, but yeah, not very sure. So, I'm not very far away.
So yeah, we are live. Well, welcome everybody to the node.js Security Working Group meeting. First one of July. And we have an agenda with some items, but as usual, we go to the vulnerability review and OpenSSF scorecard monitor review, and then we go to the regular agenda. The vulnerability review, let me see, we don't have any open issues, so nothing to discuss this week. So
I think there is one open issue, but it's been a long time one that but we had a whole bunch, all but I think one were closed by the recent security release, and that other one I think I'd have to go back and look at it, but I think it's one where like we didn't think it applied or something like that.
The zlib one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't remember. It's like 2022.
Yeah. Let me just, if I can find that one, if we want to just. So issues, yeah, it's basically the zlib on 16.x. I guess we just haven't done a zlib update on 16. So,
yeah, let me see here.
But I don't think it affects, therefore shouldn't matter.
Node p process versions. We are using zlib. Okay, yeah, that's still up, but doesn't affect node.js. So yeah. Okay. Moving on. OpenSSF scorecard monitor review.
Yep.
Ulysses.
Yeah, I can share the screen. Yeah, we already fixed the previous problem with the comparator. So now it should be like more accurate. Yeah, I think you should see already the scoring, right? Yeah,
Yes.
I'm seeing the right screen. Okay. Yeah, so first of all, we have an increase in Node itself. It's almost 0.7 points, which is based on the code review. We have an increase here. Basically, we have only one unreviewed change set of 26. Before it was like 5. So right now it's going to be like much easier. Let me put this a little bit bigger. Yeah, and I think we have a little decrease with the pinned version because now we have one more there. But yeah, I think that's all for Node. So in general, we are going the good direction. We'll see.
Just a question.
Yes.
The pinned dependence means that someone added a new workflow without pin dependency by hash, right?
It can be. Yeah. Let me see.
Okay, npm command not pinned by hash. The doc.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the dependencies. Can we ignore like the deps?
As it is currently the API, no. With the next version that, if you remember, Lauren presented time ago, I think we can put some custom rules to avoid that. But yeah, currently I think no, because we are just consuming what is on the API directly. So yeah.
So those workflows are inherited. I think you're thinking those workflows are inherited from the dependencies.
No, actually, the ones that there is one about the Docker file in the OpenSSL dependency, but
Right.
the others are like just because we are using npm without the npm version. But I don't think we are going to do it anyway.
But
No,
why not? I'm just trying to understand that.
Just because I don't think the PandaBot or RenovateBot will update the npm version in the same way they do for GitHub Actions. So we need to manually update the npm version, and that's hard to maintain.
And they don't. Is it because we're using npm from within Node itself, or?
Go to auto start -ci Ulysses, please.
Yep. This is in Node, right? Yeah.
Yes.
1 second on the way. Yep. Node.js.
In the line 59.
Okay, let me see. So this is Okay, so yeah. It was the name, well, inside of the workflows, right?
Yeah, not benchmark.
Yeah, I don't know why I end up in benchmark, but yeah, okay, workflows, yeah.
Yes, and auto start CI.
CI, yes. It was 55, I think.
Yes.
55, yes.
If you look to the npm install command, npm install node core issues, we are not using npm and then the
Yeah.
Right, we're using npm from node itself, right? Is that
yeah.
what's happening?
Yeah, well, I think the suggestion is just to use, I forgot the name in English. Let me see.
Yeah, 960.
Is it that the NPM isn't versioned, or is it that node core utils isn't versioned?
I think it's not
the npm, I guess.
Not
both.
I think it's not core utils. Maybe we can use like this.
Because like npm at something wouldn't work, right?
Yep.
You have to do like npx npm at something.
Yeah.
And I doubt they'd want that. So like it seems like it's just the node core utils that isn't pinned.
Yep.
But also I'm not sure why it needs to be globally installed. If it's like a dev, like if it was a dev dependency, you could just run npm install and then you could run it with npx.
Yes, I think we can.
Because then it would be in package JSON and renovate and so on would be able to update it.
Okay, it's just because the start CI uses it. So probably we just need to change the start CI to use npx instead.
Well, but, yeah, but I mean, you have to hard code a version number. I would to match the spirit of that scorecard check. I don't know what it actually checks, but unless it's in package JSON. So that's why I was suggesting is putting it as a dev dependency in package JSON, running npm install period, like just that, and then letting renovate keep it updated.
Inside the tools actions folder, right?
Inside whatever working directory is for here. Yeah, if you wanted to do it inside tools actions, sure, you can. Yeah, I mean, you can set the working directory for a step to wherever the package JSON is. If you don't want it at the root, that's fine too.
Yeah, that seems okay.
It's not the only way to fix it. It's just, but it would move the version management to a dependency tool, which I assume would satisfy the scorecard.
I think that should work. Like it's not a lot of work. Okay.
It seems like a Okay, so that's kind of what it's just poking on. It looks like those are maybe ones we could fix rather than ignore.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because in case of maintenance burden, because we know that node core issues is something maintained by node.js, and if we create a package JSON, and pin the dependency, it means that for every we use the release please on the node core issues, which means that on every commit that we land in a short period of time, we will make a release automatically. So it means that the renovate bot will create a pull request for that. So if we do it every week we receive a renovate bot pull request on Node.js just to this specific part.
I don't know that we do that many updates to node core utils though.
We don't, because nobody is working on that. But since I'm now working on the automation, I'm assuming that this can cause some maintenance burden. I just want.
I mean, that's also true for the pinned actions, right? Like,
yes,
pinning that's just that's always the cost of pinning, right? So like, if you're going to comply with that scorecard metric, then like the trade-off that you must accept with each thing you change, right? Each thing you pin is more frequent updates. Like,
yeah, well, so
I don't think the other ones have been a major problem yet, have they?
Maybe it's because we are not receiving the notifications. I think Marco, you are receiving the no, actually the Pendabot runs once per week, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Let me check here.
Because I kind of agree that like this one's no different than any of the others.
Yeah, I agree as
Hmm.
well. Yeah, actually, it
It's definitely
runs-
annoying. It's just kind of a sunk cost, I think, with this scorecard metric.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's a good action though. So yeah, you can go back to the scorecard monitor review,
Yep.
and I can open this issue.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, I think side note for the security working group itself, there is one vulnerability, I think. Yeah, which I'm not pretty sure if we are aware of it. But yeah, we can have a look if you want for this one. I think maybe it's one of the dependencies that we have. Let me have a look. Yeah, because I think we should receive like an email, right? When there is a new vulnerability with the and this in this like in the security tab or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see.
Well, that's weird. Oh, that might be Sierra's, right?
But
If
this
that
is, you said
Sierra's
this
is
is
already
on this,
fixed.
you said this is on the security working group repo
In the
itself.
security
Oh.
working group. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I actually cannot see that. You are able to see that on the tab?
I don't see anything. Like I click security.
Yeah,
I wait a sec. I see okay, wait a sec. Advisories.
yeah. Well, we have the code scanning as well. Well, I can
No.
share it if you want. I think we are all seeing the same thing. Yeah, so you have like
So that advisory is about Semver. So if you're using an older version of Semver 7 or any Semver before 7, you'll get that warning.
oh, okay. Oh, okay, I see that here. Yeah, it's because it was in the vulnerability section. Yeah, okay, see now. Okay, so more details.
It's a false positive for most people, but obviously you still want to clear it if you can.
Yeah. Yeah, well, definitely we use Semver, I think, because it uses to validate the version of the that we use for the vulnerability naming or something like that in the scripts that we have for the database. So yeah, maybe it's a matter of updating the version. And
Where did
that
you
will
find
solve it.
that just out of interest? I'm still looking like,
Yeah,
I just Googled the GHCA number or GHSA
Right.
number. I just typed it into Google manually and
okay,
it popped up.
okay.
I meant
That's a
in
good
the
one, yeah.
repo itself. So I click
Oh,
on security.
yeah. If you go to the security tab, there are like several sections. Normally, check out this code scanning where you see the.
Yeah, okay, right. I clicked there. Okay, sure,
Yeah.
right.
And inside of it took me a while also because it's like this is the same that you see in the scorecard. I think, or at least are the same categories. So if you go to the vulnerabilities, which is the same one, then you should be able to see like more deeply details about it. But yeah, actually there is no direct link here, I
Yeah,
think, or
okay,
maybe.
no, I found it. Okay, thanks. I was
Okay.
just curious how you got to that.
Yep. Yeah, it was a little bit tricky. Yeah, took me a while also. Yeah, I think on aside of that, for Undici, there are no changes. I think, yeah, well, SAST, we increase 1 point, I think. Okay, yeah, that's because we were 11 commit checked before, now it's 13, so we are increasing until we arrive to the 10, eventually 10 points in few more days. I mean, in few more commits. So that should be all for Undici for now. So yeah, that's the status for this. Side note on the score on the tool, on the monitoring scorecard tool, I started the process to do the migration to transfer the tool to the OpenSSF. So yeah, I will keep you updated when it's going to happen. But yeah, we need to see the full process and so on. But yeah, in general lines, the monitor tool will be part of the OpenSSF. So that's a super good news. But yeah, that's all in terms of the OpenSSF scorecard monitoring.
I think one we can add, we've added it to Node add-on API. So Node.js Node add-on API. So I don't know if you can easily add to the
Yeah,
list?
it should be in the list actually. So
Okay.
if you check it out the pull request, I just do this selection manually. So if we check the report, let me have a look. We can have a look easily and see. Yeah, let me see if I can view the file. So yeah, I'm not very sure why my Chrome is super slow today, but yeah. What was the name again?
Node add-on API.
No, they're not API. Okay, so it's here. Yeah, you can see the details here from in comparison. So yeah, it has been an increase of 0.1 point. Due code review. So seems like from 9.
That's a strange one to me because I don't think we land anything without at least one review, but gonna have
Yeah,
to.
maybe in the past we have to check it out. Yeah, like it was like
I think when the commits are landed red, I bet they're not detected as being reviewed. When they're landed purple, I assume that they will be detected.
What do you mean by
the reason
red?
the PR, like when node PRs, or is this is in this repo, right? Sorry, never mind that.
But that
But
it
like
might apply because I still land them
Okay.
sometimes like we do in Node versus
Yeah, so in Node, sometimes PRs are closed as purple, meaning they're marked merged and linked to a commit. And sometimes they're closed as red, which means a commit is landed, but it's not, there's no actual link to the two. It's sort of like, oh, I pushed a commit directly, and at the same time, I also closed the PR, but like they're unrelated. And so when they're landed red, there's no programmatic way to determine that in fact that commit and that was reviewed in that PR, and so it would be marked as unreviewed. Whereas if everything starts being landed purple, I have a feeling this will not be a problem anymore.
So okay, like the node way of landing, we basically like we run node core utils, it does some stuff, and then we push. Is that red or purple?
That's probably red. I don't know because I've never landed anything in Node, but I know it seems about half the PRs I see are landed purple and half are red, which is a huge improvement from like 5 years ago when they were all red. But like, so I'm assuming that there is some official process that lets you do both ways, but I don't know. You know, I don't have enough.
That's why I'm a bit confused why it would be like, I could understand if none of the Node ones were.
Right. So the way that it would be purple is if the head commit of the pull request lands on master or main or whatever, either via a merge commit or a fast forward commit. But if you've done any rebasing and have not pushed it to the PR and then have pushed it to the default branch, that will be red.
So would that be squashing?
Yeah, like if you squash, you have to, unless you're using GitHub's squash merge feature, if you squash, you have to push that to the PR and force update the PR before you push it to main, or it will mark it as red.
So I suspect what it is half of our ones don't need squashing. And
that's probably what it is,
right? Like we have a process, and that node core utils will, if there's more than one commit, it'll squash them down to one. If there's only one,
it's fine to do the squashing, right? It's just that the like proper GitHub way would be to update the PR, wait for it to finish, and then fast forward merge it, as opposed to just directly pushing the squashed commit.
Right. It's interesting. Okay, I mean, I'm just.
I'm like 90% confident that that's what these unreviewed chain sets are.
Okay. And that would make sense, is in that like we do squash some of them. Well. I guess if you use the UI to squash and merge, then you're okay.
Then
but if
you're okay,
But in this repo, I still follow the node approach sometimes.
Well, and my personal bias is to not use GitHub's UI feature, right? To update the PR and wait, and then fast forward merge. But GitHub doesn't make that ergonomic unless you're on the command line. So like,
right, we know they're reviewed because we got the URL, the PR URL there in the metadata, but like okay, so it's kind of just thinking like in the macro sense, that's an interesting bit of information in terms of scorecards and how it might apply. Interesting.
I assume it's the same for Undici, right? Because we have sometimes the same code review change set issues sometimes, eventually. I think when we do releases or something on that direction happens. So yeah, I think it's similar as well there.
So I'm wondering how useful is this metric in the end of the day. I mean, considering these things could happen and eventually decrease the score, would be
Yep.
reliable just look into it, like 6 of 10 would be okay?
I mean, alternatively, a fix could be to make changes to NCU so that when squashing is needed to be done, it updates the pull request instead of allowing you to put, or encouraging you to push directly.
But when we
I don't know
do
that.
request,
Yeah,
we
go ahead.
need to run the CI again, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's, I think in practical, due to the long wait of the CI and the flaky tests.
Mhm.
So I think that maybe we should I don't know that we'll resolve it now, but that's something we should think about. It's one of those things, like it may be like, okay, that's a metric we'd want to exclude because it's not a useful one for us.
Yep.
We know that our policies are that things get reviewed and everything. Or alternatively, can we change our flows so that it is a useful one for us? But it's interesting.
And there are lots of other advantages to changing the flow, right? Like it's all, as a user, it's very unhelpful that when PRs are closed as red. So whereas it's very helpful when they're closed as purple, but like that's always been in the past, that's been the pushback has been, well, I don't want to change my workflow / like who cares? But yeah, so it's a harder thing. It's not going to be solved today for sure, but
it'd be interesting to see the cost benefit analysis. Like here's the advantages, here's the disadvantages. And this group, we could probably discuss it and say, like, is there any chance that it fits the node model or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And another thing to consider is that this only happens on node.js. If you look to umdg or other repository, we use the UI feature.
Yeah.
And that won't be a problem, right?
Yeah, if you use the UI feature, then GitHub like links them anyway, and it's fine. And if you don't use the UI feature, then you just have to update the PR and rerun tests before you. Yeah. So now you could make the tests smarter, and if the diff is the same and the base commit is the same, then don't rerun the tests. Like just adopt the status from the previous run, and then that would be a fast update. But if there's a rebase involved, then you do need to rerun the tests, but then you probably should anyway.
Yeah.
But if it's just a simple squash, right? Like it seems reasonable to me that to have the CI just be like, well, the last one passed, so we're passing because it's the same diff contents and the same base commit or whatever. That's another workflow possibility change.
Yeah, that could work.
Bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to mention that like we've turned it on for Node add-on API, and one of the other collaborators, Kevin, has volunteered to take a look at some of the report. So it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Okay, so moving on. Do you have anything else, Ulysses?
No.
Okay.
From my side, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the regular agenda, I just want to briefly mention the upcoming Node.js Collaborator Summit. Nobody in this group sent a proposal to show something from the security working group. But I wondering if we should do it, considering that I delivered the updates in the previous Collaborator Summit, and we didn't change so much since there.
Yep.
So I wonder if we have something specifically to talk there so we can submit. Otherwise, we leave in the same way.
I sounded like a number of us might be there, so it might even be worth having like a in-person, security work group meeting. If we can't come up with something specific, something like that might be interesting.
Okay. Otherwise, just we can do just a brainstorming about the next features, maybe.
Yeah, like what would be our next priorities, or just in person. It's sometimes brainstorming is a little easier than. And so if we're gonna have 3, 4, 5 people, it would be and then whoever else is interested, we can sometimes pull in a broader group too in person. So
okay. So I will I will submit the session as a brainstorming, just to talk about the next steps of the security working group. Okay, so let me just take a note, otherwise I will forget.
Yeah, that sounds good, unless there's any, like, is there anything we need broader collaborator feedback on where we'd want to, like, we can cast, I think certainly in past ones, we've cast several of the sessions as like, hey, this is just a team, working group meeting. And then other ones are like, hey, we want feedback from the broader collaborator on one of our initiatives or something like that. In which case we'd want to say like, hey, we need we need not just security working group members to come. But I can't think off the top of my head of something like that. But if I just wanted to mention it, if there were things that people had in mind.
Yeah, that makes sense for me. So we have 3 confirmed, right? Ulysses will see, Thomas, don't know exactly. How can I pronounce your name? Jordan, is Jordan, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it right.
You will be there?
No, I don't think I'll be able to make it.
Okay.
I'm going to try and call in if I can.
Okay. But yeah, we probably have we will have 4 people from the working group plus the collaborators, so that would be great. Yeah. Okay. The first item in the agenda is audit build process for dependencies. This is an issue for that should be discussed for the next initiatives of the working group, and probably will be discussed in the Collab Summit. But if you want to give us a briefly summary.
Sure. So, Marco did a lot of great work, and some other people helped to get all of our dependencies automated. So now we're in, I think, a pretty good state from updating them and knowing that, like, there's a tool doing the automation. We know doing the updates. We know what's there. So even if we rubber stamp LGTM them, we're like pretty good from the supply chain security side on that bit. The next thing I think, though, is to look at what the build process is for those various pieces. Not necessarily like in the update itself, but like I know, for example, when there's an Indici update, the set of build steps that somebody has to go through to generate the WASM, or sorry, generate the WASM, those I don't think today are repeatable. Like we might use different versions of tools, we might use different versions of the underlying operating system. So like we may not get the same WASM if we went back to build an old version. And I think one of the supply chain security related things is like, hey, you want to know you can rebuild the same thing you built before, and that what dependencies you're using and stuff like that. So that's just a concrete example that I've run into. And like in that case, what it does is it uses a Docker file to build to create a container. That container does like some installs. I think it's APK installs. Those I don't think you actually get the same version every time you do the APK install. I'm not 100% sure because it's Alpine versus something else, but I know like in the Red Hat ones, if you DNF install something today and then there's a security fix, the next time I DNF install it, I'm going to get a different version, right? So I'm guessing it's the same thing here. For that one, I'm thinking like we can do something where like the actual build process is like build this container and then use the container. I'm thinking we might actually just want to set up a repo that like builds those Docker containers, and GitHub actually has a container storage. Like you can push a container to GitHub. So we could push it to one of our repos. And then every time we build, we could build with a pinned hash to that Docker container version. And so we'd know we've got the same thing. We could go backwards in time and use an older one if we wanted. So that's one I can take a look at. But for all of these, they may or may not have issues like that. So the idea here is let's just go through some of them. I think will be a really simple, like, well, all we do is we copy the source code in from somewhere else. There is no build steps or like, it's just raw source code. It's C source code versus there's some build steps. Whereas other ones like, OpenSSL, similarly, we have a bunch of steps we run when we bring in a new OpenSSL. I think it uses Docker containers. I don't know if it installs anything, but like similar things. I think for like the CGS module Lexer, we even like do NPM installs, which could get different versions. And so some of them I expect will be like, nope, nothing funny here. Check, 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 check. And other ones, it's like, okay, how do we build? How do they build? Yeah, okay, there's something we'd want to do to make it more repeatable.
So the goal of this initiative would be making all the dependents or making all the Node.js pull requests a repeatable build, right?
It would be, yeah, I think that's the one thing would be like, hey, we know we can repeat this. We could go back and build it exactly the same way as it was, say when we did Node 8.2. And if we need to make an 8.3, we know we can start from the same spot, right? Okay. The other thing I think would be good to look at is like some we don't do that anymore, but we used to, like for the WASM stuff, we would pull a WASM toolchain from somebody just using a wget. I think it would be good for us to understand like where we're pulling things. So for example, NPM, you know, we can say maybe NPM with a pin version is a safe source. You know, we believe NPM will never go away. It's always going to be there. Great. So that's safe. If we're pulling from some other website like GitHub, say I think we were pulling from a GitHub release for the WASM tools beforehand. I think people could just delete their GitHub repo, right? So is that safe? Because, you know, if you know, say we've got something in the maintenance line, we need to make a new release, but somebody's deleted their GitHub repo in the meantime, that could be a concern. So basically, like, you know, if as we go through, we want to understand if we're doing anything in the steps, our build steps, to say, I'm pulling something from somewhere, you know, NPM, wget, whatever, like, do we think that where we're pulling from is a safe, like immutable thing that will always be there? Or if not, maybe we should make a copy of it and store that somewhere in our repos so that we're not dependent on, you know, some site out there.
So I assume this will be just an extension of the Pine dependency we do for our actions, right?
Well, yeah, it could be something like
considering
that.
The threat model, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a little bit of understanding where we get stuff and convincing ourselves like, hey, this one is safe. We could say like, well, if GitHub goes away, like obviously that have bigger problems, so we're not going to worry about that. Or yeah, well, because it's in, you know, individually they can be deleted, we are going to make copies or whatever. But I think it's going through and looking at the risk level of where we're getting stuff and saying, yeah, no, we trust that source. We trust the people managing that source. It's always going to be there. Or we should do something to, you know, copy it and keep, you know, and have our own copy. Basically, should we, in some cases, should we have our own copy or not, or trust?
Yeah, so I guess like an artifact repository of some sort, like where to store some of like WebAssembly files, all that kind of stuff that's built. So we have there, and like it could be also good for performance because we don't have to build from source all the time, I think. So
yeah, that right. We might get some other side benefits. So for example, like the one where we're cloning somebody's GitHub repository, maybe what we should do is fork that and have our own copy in the node.org. And that's the one we use for builds. And we periodically update it, right? Like that would
There's actually a GitHub action that I use called, I forget what it's called. I'll look it up. But it keeps my forks like updated automatically. It's like renovate for forks. So that would work fine.
Right, okay. So that would, you know, then if they deleted their repo, we still have a copy. We're not, you know, we don't have a problem. So yeah, so at a high level, the first step is to go through and look at each of these and say, no issues, no issues, no issues. I expect quite a number of them will be like that. And then we'll maybe left with 2, 3, 4, where it's like, well, these do things more, you know, more things like cloning things and, you know, anything that has WASM or like, it's really anything where we don't have the builds like from the original source that we would need to change to fix something. there's no extra steps to the build steps we do in our, node make thing. If we just copy over 2 or 3 C files, which are the things you would edit, then there's not an issue, right? Whereas like, I think the CGS module Lexer, there's some code written in TypeScript. We run our generate, which generates the C code we copy over. But like, if we were going to make a change, we're not going to change that C code that was generated. We need to change the original TypeScript code. And so we need to be comfortable we can reproduce those transformation steps.
Yeah, I guess there are a few dependencies that, for example, like some of them you need to npm install them, and you have to extract the node modules that you have installed and use them as our dependency. Like that's obviously not the best thing to do. And also there are some dependencies like, for example, histogram, which are quite small as projects. Like they're not like famous projects or well-known. They are quite small. So the risk that something happens to this small project is much higher than something like OpenSSL, for example. So I think forking histogram, for example, would be definitely a good idea.
Well, yeah, I think this is great actually. Regardless if we will reduce the surface of I don't know, of an attack vector, this will be good for the entire ecosystem, not just for the security perspective.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of benefits to.
Yeah, I was just looking to the security scope of it, but I think I can understand now. All right, I think that's good. Do you have an idea how to start it? Like, what would be the next step, or do you think it would be great to wait for the Collab Summit?
I think it's there's the list there. I pasted the list of check marks, and just like the updaters, I think, anybody who's interested can say, oh, I'm going to go take a look at blah, right? And then we can paste. I think we should like paste a comment in here that says like, hey, I looked at Acorn. The only thing that's happening is blah. It's the original source. Okay, we check that one off. We don't have to worry about it. And I suspect if somebody sat down for like, a couple hours, they could check off a few of the easy ones. And so we can I think like have a bunch of people, as many people are as interested, start to look at different ones and work on them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something I could do. Like I have some contest on this thing, so I will leave a comment for sure under the issue.
Okay. I will just mention, I think it would be great to mention the build team as well in that issue, so they just can confirm the behavior we described, or like maybe we didn't understand it entirely.
I'm not
like
sure the build team is the right. Like I don't know anybody on the build was more about infrastructure, so I'm not sure that group specifically. Each of these, I think some of them will have like there is in the collaborator thing like who to mention. So that might be a good place to find an app mention for like, who knows? Actually, I'm just seeing if I can find that here. Doc contributing, and then is it the collaborator guide? Who to CC in the issue tracker? Okay, so here's. I think this is one good place to look for somebody. Now, whether, I don't know how we translate those to this. Is there even an OpenSSL one?
Yeah, it's just,
And
it's not in the depths, it's just inside the source and lib folder.
yeah.
Well,
Kind of interesting on that front. It would be good to know who knows the most about the different depths. And I guess I'd probably, another way is to look at like who's made recent commits and updates there in the depths. I just know like the build team is not necessarily like it's more infrastructure stuff versus like how does node itself get built.
Okay.
So I think you're right that we should. So just want to say your idea of finding somebody who knows the component to comment and confirm is very good idea.
Okay. Yeah,
It's good.
it's good. It's good. I think we can see how it goes, like do the first round of reviews and see if that's feasible, and then we eventually include it to the initiatives for in the README. Okay. Initiatives for CIA best practices. Basically, I had a call with Robin again yesterday, Ulysses, and I pinged her about that issue, and she told me that they can help to transfer the rod maintainer to the Node.js to someone in the Node.js organization.
Fantastic.
I don't know if she did that, but we are missing a few things for the silver level, right?
Yeah. I think there are like 6 topics open, kind of
Let's
thing.
see.
Yeah. Let me share my screen.
And this is actually why I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you mind if I comment real quick?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah. So I just started contracting for the OpenJS Foundation as their security engineering champion, and one of my tasks is, in the longer run, to get the OpenSSF best practices badge on eventually on all the OpenJS projects, but on like a initial list of critical projects, and Node is obviously on that list. So I've been following this issue and some of these discussions with interest. I'm not yet at the point like if y'all hadn't been doing anything, then what I would have done, then my current plan is to do NVM, since that's my own project, and I was going to pick another one like Fastify or something that's NPM published, and go through the whole process and collect feedback for OpenSSF and so on, and then start moving into the bigger projects. However, y'all are doing some of this work for me for Node already, which is awesome. So I want to like make myself available. Like, is it, do you, as a heads up that I'll be doing it eventually anyway, if you don't want to do the work, but also saying like, it's totally great if you want to do it. There's plenty of things for me to do. And then like, let me know how I can help. And that includes if you don't already have I assume you all already have a good channel back to the OpenSSF folks for feedback on the badge program, but if you need one, I also can do that.
Great. Yeah, actually, Node.js, if I remember correctly, Node.js already submitted to the badge some years ago, 5 years ago, and then this Rod did it for us. So he created the project under his account, but now we need to transfer it to someone in the Node.js security working group or TSC, and the entry level we already set, and that's fine. Like, we look at the whole process and we finish it, and then we are in the silver and eventually going to the gold. The only missing piece from the entry level is that we don't know exactly where to put the badge, because the recommendation is on the README, but a few folks complains about that, and then we are willing to do it in the website, but the website is also complaining about that. So
yeah,
I mean, it feels like I don't know all the politics here, but it feels like the pushback from Node about putting badges in the README is largely because you don't want to open the floodgates for everyone to be like, here's 300 different badges y'all should put on the README, which makes sense. Yep. But given that this one is like, given that this one is going to be part of an OpenJS wide initiative for all of its projects, and it's like OpenJS endorsed, and it comes from a foundation as opposed to like a well-known foundation, it feels like a reasonable thing to put on the repo. But if that's still not viable, I feel like it's something the website can handle, right? Like, the only pushback I've seen on from websites folks for badges has been around, we're not sure where to put like a Vercel badge. But I think for this one, it's, I think it will be fine to end it up on the website, but it would be ideal if it was on the repo.
Yeah.
The pushback in the main one, and I looked at earlier discussions and stuff, was people aren't convinced it adds any value. So that's just, for your context, that's the case that needs to be made is like, what value are we adding by adding it to the repo? This particular badge, like, it was like, hey, badges in general, we don't think do any good.
Right.
I know you've got, so it's like, maybe if the OpenJS makes a request of projects that like might shift that, or,
Okay.
you can go and look at the people there who expressed some of those opinions, and
Sure.
I know some of them, so you might be able to talk to them and get better feel, because sort of like in your role, it seems that's going to be one of the things you're going to have to overcome is like, well,
Absolutely.
why does it matter? And
well, and for the record, like I get it, right? Like I think it's a chicken and egg thing, is that it doesn't provide value right now.
right.
But as soon as enough projects start putting it on there and like complying, and it becomes a useful metric in the ecosystem, then it will add value for Node to have it. But Node adding it can push towards that place.
Right.
So
like we can add
Yeah.
value for the ecosystem by
correct.
supporting these kinds of initiatives. And it's
Correct.
making the case so that people go, oh, okay, yeah, let's support that. Right.
Exactly.
And
I don't think
everybody
it adds
here is
value for Node
supported.
right now.
Right.
But it does
Yeah.
add value to the ecosystem, which
Right.
adds value for Node indirectly, right? So that's essentially the argument I would make, because like I had the same reaction when because I went through it for NVM like a year ago, and I had the same reaction of like, why do I have to put a badge on here? How does that make my project more secure? And like, I'll also like, I'm also happy to go back and provide that feedback, and maybe it should be an optional requirement. But like, it's good to know that there's like.
Yeah. So like,
Good
it
to
may
make
be
sure that
like,
I'm not missing pieces. Yeah, go ahead.
here's the initiative, if it's like, hey, OpenJS is asking all of its projects to add this to help the ecosystem. And like, I don't know whether it's a write-up or something, but like,
Yeah.
So, in the meantime, hopefully we can get it landed on the website, but it's these things as often are the case are not always, it's not just the technical thing that's the hard part.
Right.
It's convincing.
But I mean, if all of the other criteria are met, like if not for the badge, like Node would be at silver or gold or something, like that's something that could be overcome in various different ways. And that's certainly part of my role to go after that.
Yeah. I guess also like, Ulysses, you've figured out there's like 6 silver things missing. Is there any of those that are particularly hard?
No, I think we can just check it out fast if you want, and see if we can just close it, because I think we are almost there. So there is one regarding the build system for the software produced by the project, but not recursively builds of dependencies and so on. I think there is only one case, which is CLIP, right? So in that case, we are on meet, right, for the requirement.
The build system is
Let me check. Sorry, I was looking to something else. The build system. Yes, so basically we don't have cross dependency, but V8 includes a copy of zlib, which is not in the same version that we use in the depth zlib. There is a pull request open to do that, as Richard mentioned, but we are not sure if that counts as a cross dependency, because technically we are not using different versions of zlib on Node.js, but V8 does.
I guess I don't quite understand, like, build system for software produced by the product must not recursively build subdirectories. There are cross dependencies in the subdirectories.
So this reads to me like V8 is vendored in Node, right?
Yes.
Yep.
But we do build V8, but do we build V8's dependencies, like zlib, for example?
Actually, when we get the V8 vendored, it's already built, like, just we don't build it. Yes.
Okay, then for my reading, that meets the spirit of this, which is that it's building a subdirectory, but it's not recursively doing it. It's building V8, but it's not building anything else. And actually, in this case, it's not even building V8, but like.
My question is why? What's?
Yeah, why is the security?
What's the motivation here? Because I think that's what I don't understand well enough to figure out.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
like, is it that we don't run, like, we have one make file that builds everything versus we we CD into the subdirectories and do a make, if you know what I mean. Like, so
I
maybe,
think.
Mhm.
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
I think might be because I don't know. Let's say that we are using zlib in the version 1.12.11 that is safe, but V8 is using .10 that it contains a public CVE, and then we might be affected by a cross dependence. But I mean, it's not like something to worry so much about.
So I guess, when I was poking on these 6, like if, Jordan's volunteering some stuff and going back, like this is one that like I'm uncertain what it means.
I just asked about the motivation in Slack in the open.
Yeah, okay. So right. So yeah, if you
Okay.
can sort of, do some
Yeah.
digging and help us understand what the goal is there, and then, yeah, go forward.
Fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go for the next one. I think this one is okay. The project must be able to repeat the process of generating information from source files and get exactly the same byte for bit result. I think this is un myth, I think.
Right. Today we know we don't. I think
Yeah.
it might also be related here a little bit to the one we talked about auditing our build process.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so we want to understand I guess it depends how far back we need to go, but there's that one definitely needs some work, even just for our single make command. Does it output the same thing or not?
So we can leave this for now as un myth, and then later on in the next review we can. Okay, so
it would be probably helpful to list out the things that change, because I'm sure some of it's like timestamps or something, but like presumably there's other things that are actually material.
Stuart's on top of that. It has like the one things that are changed are related to snapshots, I think. So I've talked to Joey, and there's some discussion going on that front.
Listen, I would just include the issue of that we are looking to have reproducible builds, like in case most of the math things, I think would be great to have an issue so we can just review it very easily.
Okay. We have that issue, or we should create that one?
Yeah, do you have it, Michael?
Sorry, which one? The one to achieve
reproducible builds.
Bit for bit, yeah.
You mentioned that SXA is working on that.
Yeah, so do we have an issue? I know he's pinged Joey and how about why don't you just mention SXA and ask if there's an issue?
Yeah, I will leave like that to be confirmed, and I will reping you later on. Okay. So yeah, next.
So unfortunately, I have to drop off a few minutes early, so I'll see you all next time. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
So next one is project must be maximally strict with warnings in the software produced by the project where practical.
Yeah, I think the where practical is hand wavy enough that Node can claim to meet it.
Sorry?
Like the where practical part, that allows you a lot of judgment. And like Node has doc deprecation, and then it has deprecation warnings. And like there's a whole cycle where it is as strict as possible, where is practical for breakage, and eventually it becomes runtime deprecated. Like that. I feel like Node does a pretty rigorous job of that compared to most projects.
I think this is a myth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Okay, next one. The default security mechanism within the software produced by the project must not depend on cryptographic algorithms or model with known serious weakness. Okay.
Let me see. Okay.
Yeah.
This one
I think this is like as I commented. I said like we provide the weak algorithms, but we do not rely on them. Like we don't use them internally. So
I agree with you. Yeah, I think it's up to the end user, if they decide to use MD5 to hash passwords,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
but not because we force them to do it. So yeah. I think this is a worst case scenario, non-applicable, but I think it's a myth. So yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the security mechanism we use, we don't depend on.
OpenSSL, I think that we can say HTTPS is something like a security mechanism that we have built in, but other than that, I have no idea.
This is about relying on cryptographic algorithms or on that. Like, let's say that when we perform on any OpenSSL action, we rely on that specific algorithm. So that would be unmeet in that case. But I don't think this is, we don't use it internally unless it's specifically by the user.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there is no default security mechanism here. There's no like web server module that makes choices about security. So a default would be something where the user doesn't make a choice, and there simply are no security mechanisms within Node that are default. Like, so it's I would say MET or NA.
Yeah.
MET is fine.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay, I think this is maybe the last one. So the software produced by the project must, if it supports TLS, perform TLS certificate verification by default when using TLS, including on sub resources. If the software does not use TLS, okay.
Yeah, so that's we would need to confirm, because we do have TLS validation, but that's not performed by the full, if I remember correctly. It's very rare the use case of HTTPS besides like a reverse proxy,
I think we can tag James in this one because he knows a bit about this. So like, if you could tag him in under this comment, hopefully he will reply.
Yeah, with James Snell. Okay, yeah. Can you help us here? And let's see. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, next one. So the software produced by the project must, if it supports TLS, perform certificate validation, verification before sending STP headers with private information such as secure cookies. If the software does, vale. Okay, so yeah, waiting for confirmation.
Yeah, let me ping him again. Let me get that link.
Okay.
But I mean, I would argue this is sort of in the same thing where it's like, like a web browser makes choices for the user, and so its choices must be secure. No, it doesn't make choices for the user.
Yep. Okay, I think this is the last one. So hardening mechanisms should be used in the software produced by the project so that software defects are less likely to result in security vulnerability. Yeah, we don't have, I think, isolated build machines because they are reused over the time. So that maybe, yeah, that was the point of Rafael, I think. So
yeah. I didn't understand entirely that question though. Like, how would it apply to any software, or how would it apply to Node.js?
Yeah. Maybe it's like a not applicable because maybe this is like more for like a SaaS project, where you provide like a service, so you have to regularly audit, maybe. I'm not very sure. Maybe the problem is the question itself, like how it's redacted. So yeah. Yeah, because again, if you are using Node, as a user, you should be, in charge of any kind of hardening around what you are building with Node, right? So in that sense, not very sure. We should mention anyone here, or maybe we shall just leave it to Jordan if you can clarify it maybe for us.
Yeah, I'll ask about hardening mechanisms as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's
all,
yeah,
right?
that's all for the questions. Yeah, only the last 6 ones. Yeah.
Okay, so we are a bit 2 minutes late. So
Yeah.
thank you, folks, as usual, for joining. I'll be publishing the minutes for the ones that couldn't participate. And see you in 2 weeks. And I will make sure to create the proposal for the summit. Okay, thank you.
I usually can't make this time because I'm watching my kids, but like I'm very available on Slack and all the things. So like, please let me know any way I can help, and I'll continue checking in every now and then.
Okay,
Fantastic. Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks.